Welcome back to Just One Question. I'm still here. I'm Nick Morgan, and I'm delighted to connect this time with a very dear friend and a really interesting thinker and thought leader, Scott Eblin. Scott is the best-selling author of The Next Level and Overworked and Overwhelmed, which is his latest. And he's a global and virtual now speaker. And I'm really impressed with the way Scott has pivoted. As we say, I hate the word pivot, but I'm impressed with the way Scott has done it. He's a leadership educator and he's a coach. Welcome, Mr. Eblin. Tell us how you're doing. It's good to see you again.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan. It is nice to be here. I'm doing well and feeling grateful. I'm healthy. My wife is healthy. Our two sons we're out living on their own in the world, are healthy. And, we're in a position where we can likely stay that way, just because of folks that deliver things through Amazon and all those wonderful people who are making it possible for those of us who can work from home to stay home. And so very grateful for that, and very grateful for just some really fascinating work I've gotten to do since the pandemic started, really, with clients that you used the word pivot a minute ago, have pivoted quickly to virtual leadership development. Some have, some haven't, but we're fortunate to be working with a number who have done that quickly. And it's been a really interesting place to be, just especially at the beginning of the pandemic. I felt like I was like a week ahead of where the zeitgeist was going because and having the conversations I was having with folks, you could start to see the patterns. And I could say, okay, well, this is what's going to happen next. Like I predicted Zoom fatigue about a week before everybody else started talking about it. And so my predictive ability has slowed down a little bit yet now, because I think we're all kind of in the same place at this point. But it's still really interesting, and I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to keep working during this period.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So time for just one question, Mr. Eblin, which is we're in this for a while, and you are amongst the folks who have figured out how to do good work in the virtual space. Many people are doing that. Many people are still struggling with that transition. So just tell us from your experience and what you've learned, what's working and what isn't in the virtual space.
Yeah, I think it works when you can make the connection between what you would have done in a physical room together and how do you translate that into a virtual space. So for instance, I did a lot of speaking. I still do a lot of speaking. I just don't get on airplanes to do it now. But back in the old days, I did a lot of speaking in rooms, keynotes, and then interactive workshops and interactive keynotes, just kind of a mix of different formats. And so when I start working on a presentation or a longer term program that's virtual, I really think, okay, if I was in the room with these people, what would I do? I would have Q&A. I would have conversations from the tables. If they have microphones at the tables, like shout out this, raise your hand on that. Go talk to your partner, your table mate about this thing. Here's the script to go have a conversation with your table mate for 10 minutes. All of those things that you would do in a room. Well, the good news is you can do all of that online too. And I think a lot of that depends on the platform you're using. I mean, I think I've been exposed to pretty much every platform there is, and my go-to is what we're using today is Zoom, because I think it's the easiest for most people to use. It's the easiest to get into. It's a pretty stable platform. They're doing more and more with security, which is good. They needed to, but it makes it really seamless. I mean, we have breakout rooms that we can do on Zoom. We have virtual hand raising if I've got a larger group. It works really well to ask an open-ended question of the group, like, has this ever happened? Raise your hand if this has happened to you. Virtual hands go up. Or open-ended question, what's on your, I actually like starting a lot of my sessions with this just as people are still gathering, because there's always a few latecomers when you're at the top of the hour. What's your state of mind this week? What's on your mind? Let me know by chat. And so, well, Nick says he's feeling groovy. Well, that's cool, and whatever, and so that gives me an opportunity to interact, call out a few names. It makes it feel like we're all in a gathering place, and people say, oh, people are feeling the same way I'm feeling, or I'm a little bit not with the norm or whatever, right? But they get immediately engaged that way. So that works really well. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to do in any given event? And then how do you do it? And so I ask those questions all the time. Back in the old days, I still ask those two questions now, and so what are we trying to do in this event or this program, and how can we do it? How can we use the full range of functionality in the medium, Zoom in this case, to, make it work? Now, what doesn't work, and so what works, what doesn't work. Hopefully I don't do a lot of this, but what doesn't work is you don't drone on and on. You wouldn't do that as a presenter. You wouldn't do that in a room these days. I mean, you taught me that many years ago. You wouldn't do that in a room, and you wouldn't do it online. And it's even more important not to do it online, I think, because people have so many options immediately available to them to distract themselves,
Right.
And so my rule of thumb, I have a couple of rules of thumb. One is no session should be longer than 90 minutes online. Because
that's a good one.
That's the extent of people's capacity to sit there. Another rule is I shouldn't be speaking uninterrupted for more than 5 minutes, and that's at the outside end of the range. I should at least be asking a hand raised question or something easy way for people to engage in that 5 minutes. And then we need to switch to another way for people to engage, give me some answers via chat to this more complicated question. Let's go to a breakout room, and here's a coaching script for you to coach each other in your breakout room for 5 minutes. Whatever it might be. Just you want to constantly be mixing the modality, I think, to keep people engaged.
Yeah, that's really smart. I love the 5-minute rule. I get passionate about teleworking, which is my subject of the hour these days, and lots of demand for that. And I have a 10-minute rule, and I sometimes forget and push that a little bit. So I think I'm going to adopt your 5-minute rule and go.
And it's not scientific.
If I break it,
a scientific basis for that.
No, I get it.
But I'd say that. The other thing I'm learning, I mentioned breakout rooms a minute ago. One thing that I'm learning kind of in real time, actually, this week as we talk, we've done a couple of, by we, I mean the Eblin Group, we've done a couple of longer term programs for a particular client company. And so the first program, which is more or less completed now, we're almost done with it, was a series of webinars followed by small group coaching sessions where I'm facilitating the small group coaching sessions to follow up on the webinars, basically. We did that initially with sales leaders in that company, right? And so they kind of all knew each other. They were all sales leaders. And it was really just the goal for the company was to help them stay engaged at a time when they couldn't be out feet on the street, and give them something productive to think about and work on, like, what's the next look like. So that was kind of the whole point of that. And we did a lot of breakouts during those sessions of like 5 minutes each, because I usually had like an hour for the session, so I had to get the breakouts short. But then the next program we did for that company that we're in the middle of now, and we just did a survey monkey to get kind of mid-program feedback. We've completed the webinars. We're moving into small group coaching. And people in the second group, which that group was 2 kind of flagship leadership programs that they had for high potential leaders, cross-functional across the company. And the original plan before the pandemic was they were going to be in the room together in each of these programs 3 or 4 times over the course of a year. And you're going to build your network and make new connections in the company and all those good things that happen when you do that, right? Well, none of that was happening anytime soon. So they asked me to kind of fill in the gap. We want these programs to launch, but we need them to launch with some content, Scott, that you can provide on the next level and stuff like that. And so I did breakouts in the webinars there. And the only thing that people are critical about in the surveys on that program is we want more time in the breakout sessions.
Yeah.
And the sales folks didn't say that, right?
Hmm.
And I thought,
Interesting.
well, that's interesting. And I said, okay, like, why is that? Well, the sales folks already knew each other, and they're all in the same function. So I could give them a breakout on a particular topic or an exercise to do with each other and give them 5 or 7 minutes to do that and come back, everybody's happy. That same exercise or that same set of questions in the flagship program where they're cross-functional, 5 to 7 minutes really wasn't enough, and because they didn't have enough time to really get to know each other, which was one of the main points of the program, right? And so what I would say is, my lesson learned is, what's the goal? What's the goal of the program, and how do you use any modality, in this case, breakout sessions, to really tie into the goal? So, next time I'll know. that was a good lesson to figure out kind of in real time on this one.
Awesome. Scott Eblin, reporting back from the front line of the virtual world. As it happens.
On the rooftops in London.
Thank you so much, and good to see you, my friend. Stay safe.
Thank you, Nick.
And hang in there.
You too, buddy. Thank you so much.